Okay, now I'm officially back with you guys. Apologies for the technical issues. I did put my double selections out before the first race there, so you guys knew that I liked Bustin' Loose there. I was just poised to explain to you guys why I gave Bustin' Loose a huge chance there to pull an upset, and he does win it and win it hands down at 5-1. Good score for me. And that daily double, because as I said before the first race even transpired, that I love you so money, baby, in the first. It was under bet at 6-5, big time under bet. And I told you guys the horses I was going to use were Bustin' Loose and French Onion in the second race. And I didn't get to Bustin' Loose when I started to break down the second race. A couple of minutes to post there, had some technical stuff that booted me off the air. I'm back on now. Called my tech guy who's in Boston, believe it or not. And he got me up and running again. And apologies, guys. So apologies for the interruption of the signal. Nice score for me on the daily double there because I like Bustin' Loose a lot in the second race. And I put him out before the first race, too. It was a horse you definitely wanted to use in your double. I think I said you want to play 7-4 and 7-9. So let's move on to race number 3, guys. I don't know if it's worth noting or not that the first 2 winners were buffered out from the inside. I didn't think Tiergard was any match for you, so Money Baby, to begin with in the opener. But I guess it's worth observing that the place horse, you can't just watch the winners in determining some kind of a running style or path bias that may have set in. And your first race winner did rally around. And in the second race, Bustin' Loose kicked it in that second quarter. I should say around the far turn. And that's when biases become most evident, when fatigue begins to set in, when the horses begin to get asked for all they're worth. And Bustin' Loose made it look like they were standing still with kind of an Arazi move. I don't wonder if that was boosted a little bit by some kind of a path bias out there, which has kind of been in play and then not in play, back and forth. But I think you could fairly characterize the Mountain Maine over the last several weeks as negative rail. Not good along the inside, guys. Hopefully you guys are still with me. If so, much appreciated. If not, then I'll sit here and talk to myself. My brother once said, when I started doing television, when I started breaking races down on the Mountaineer feed, nobody knew who I was. I would soon emerge and make a name for myself as an on-air analyst. But my brother said, you know what, he's not doing anything. When I created something of a sensation and people were curious, who is this guy? He's pretty good at this and does it differently than anybody ever has to this point. And my brother used to tell him, hell, man, my brother's been pontificating like this and trying to tell somebody how much he thinks he knows for 25 years. And I've been forced to listen to it. Now the world has to listen as well. Although when I do go to simulcast and I'm hanging out with my buddies, I don't sit there and preach or act like I'm on television. I don't do that. I just listen respectfully to their opinions, and I only offer one if requested. I'm not that talkative in person, believe it or not. You'd be surprised. A lot of my fans and my viewers, when they encounter me in the flesh, are a little bit surprised that I'm not exactly introverted, but I'm not exactly the life of some guy. And it was a really good handicapper and really arrogant, too. But he was a good bettor and a hell of a trumpet player, too. On the big day, they'd do that. Michael Zeisler, MZ, is here. My man, Kenny Neely. Got to dig me some Kenny. Ho-Jin Lee, Ace McDuff. I am comfortable amongst you guys, my peeps. I'm lucky my tech guy was at hand because he operates all the technical stuff for a major television affiliate in Boston. He migrated there from here, and he's busy. He works a lot of nights, and he works a lot of days, and I'm lucky I was able to get him via text there. Well, we'll see how lucky I was as to whether I offer anything insightful over the remainder of the night's card. You never know, guys. You never know. How many minutes to post is it, my friends? Just 2 minutes to post, and Happy Friday is 3-1 up there. Happy Friday is second-time starter. And I remember he was bet way down first time out of the box there, which can be a sign a horse has got some ability. He's only got one sibling to get to the races, and that horse has some speed. Cheap, but has some speed. Happy Friday got pinched back at the break there and then ran on okay to a very promising second-time starter who was visually impressive. Something Sweet had already been second. In Face of Shadows, I think, had just been second too. So there was some form to choose from there. And so many times, the take play, first time ever out, is a sign, and they don't quite get their game together. And in Happy Friday's case, the horse was pinched back a little bit. Shouldn't happen for 14 post here, huh? And was an encouraging debut, all things considered. Red Drapes, when you see Aragata connected as a former trainer or owner with a horse that's now in Jaybird's hands, keep an eye peeled because those horses tend to run. This horse has been on dirt 4 times, though, and has not run nearly as well as he has on synthetics and also on turf. Doesn't seem to like dirt a whole lot, but sometimes synthetics condition a horse to do better on dirt the second time around. That's a theory of mine. And Prescal seems to set horses up nicely to come to Mountaineer and run well. This horse has got route strength there. Showed that on June the 17th to take a tough beat second after setting all the pace. And has also got some sprint quickness if you isolate a race or two there on the page. So I don't think he'd be a big shock there at 5-1. Javalia, the 8 horse. Another Randy Bailey. Randy Bailey just won a race. And this horse is first time ever on dirt. Javalia, who has been kind of spinning his wheels on synthetics, but did improve his Beyer Speed Fig last time. Didn't get a chance to check out that race. Were those horses that formidable that he improved his number by almost 10 points and still lost by 13 lengths in his first ever claimer? Well, if that was his first ever selling race, this is his first ever dirt. And he's got the Mountain Maine coursing through his veins because Cupid was one of Bob Baffert's West Virginia Derby winners. Cupid was a gray. Boy, he is well supported up there, way down from the 20-1 morning line. And Randy Bailey's a Sharpie too, man. And that was going to be part of my spiel to try and convince you guys that Boston Loose had a huge shot in the second race there. And we also got to look at the 5 horse here. Little Braveheart off that near 50 Beyer, first time out at Keeneland, and a maiden special weight race, has regressed since then and hasn't done a thing. But I would also take note that this trainer ran first and second both in the nightcap, I think on Wednesday. So he may be coming into a hot spell, Scott Murphy. And that debut was encouraging there too, from Little Braveheart. Independent Streak was also favored first time to the post. Shares that in common with Happy Friday. Independent Streak was just sluggish, though. Did not have a strong as path. And I was less impressed with Intelligent, who thrashed Independent Streak, than I was with Something Sweet, who thrashed Happy Friday. So I like Happy Friday more than I do the Mike Beard second-time starter, Independent Streak here. Really surprised that Javalia can be this low. Bullet worked since the last race. Awake on work. And goes second Lasix here. Just has not shown much speed, but is really hot on the board and has worked Bullet like a light bulb workout since the last race there, huh? Good luck to you guys. Hopefully no more technical difficulties tonight. Hope you guys scored there. Bet a couple of bucks. I did bet a couple of bucks on Happy Friday there, who I did like in the race. I think 2-1 was a fair price. Off-turf races are rapidly becoming my favorite kind of races to wager on. I'm 3 for 3 in my personal betting account, and 2 of those winners were under bet. Races 1 and 2 went to under bet winners for sure, and that was a fair price, I thought, on Happy Friday. It was ridden with a lot of confidence, was under wraps, wasn't gung-ho right from the get-go, and ran greenly in the final drive. I would also mention that my suspicions that we may have an anti-rail and even pro-wide surface are looking more and more likely. Could you see how wide that horse was out there? Way wide. Was out towards the crown of the track for most of that journey. Might have been that much the best, but then again, all 3 winners tonight have been way out from the inside. I'm not sure your second race winner, Boston Lewis, would have caught those speeds quite that cleverly and quite that soon without maybe some better footing out there. Could be mistaken. We've only had 3 races worth of sample size to judge the grain from. I didn't notice we have a freaking 2-horse field, a match race later on tonight. A match race. Please, give me a break. Somebody give me a break. This is the last off-turf race of the card. This was supposed to be on turf, 1 mile. It goes the same distance on that sloppy mountain main. And this is a $15,000 claimer for never twos. And held together with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. Do we have 9 to the post here? Let me check it out. Indeed, we do have 9, huh? Let's take it from the top. Junior Chief on the inside. I liked him a lot last time on the turf. I liked him a ton. Made a good score there at 9-2. This horse can't stand up on the dirt, though. So a not so fortuitous turn of events here for Team Junior Chief. Frozen for the 3-horse, 1 for 36. This horse is actually claimed by a long shot Langley. He's very confident he can improve on other horsemen. He usually does, but just you got to have something to work with, and he really doesn't here. Plus Frozen 4's 1 win, and most of his placings came on turf there. Dancing on Air, the 4 is 18-1 up there. Dancing on Air has got the 1 dirt win. His win was on dirt. I don't think he's a route horse, though. Token late run there at 5.5 on June the 21st, and they stretch him on out. And that's just a common mistake that a lot of connections make when a horse is rallying at 5.5 or 6, and they're thinking, okay, more real estate. That's all he needs is more ground. And jocks often get off a horse and spout that same shit. Jocks that have no idea about pace, running style, race flow, what real stamina is. They just do not understand because it's just different when you move out to a distance of ground and you don't have 5 weak wilting speeds in the race to flatter you, so you can at least clunk up with a horse like Dancing on Air for a third or something like that. And then when you run a route, you have fewer speeds and they're stronger. And the stalkers are stronger to boot. So all of a sudden, you're not such a big-ass finisher with a horse like Dancing on Air when you move out the 2 turns, which I think was a dumb move with Dancing on Air. Very dumb placement. And I'm not picking on one particular set of connections. It's just been my observation over the years, you know. Some of the placements are so freaking stupid, just so stupid. I can recall, and I'm not going to say the name because the guy was a friend of mine decades ago, before I even went on television, when I was just a fledgling entry clerk, before I even moved up and planted my flag in the racing department of Mountaineer. So there was this guy, really good friend of mine, who had a horse named Shenandoah Pride. And Shenandoah Pride was the late running sprinter is what he was. And he'd been running long, like 5-6 times in a row and making this huge hero move around the turn and then giving up ground down the lane. So when you're an entry clerk, you got to be careful, very tactful. But I'm Johnny Know-It-All. So, and I'm friends with this guy. So I'm going to make a breach of etiquette and suggest that he shortens the horse up. So he did shorten the horse up, and he wins 3 or 4 in a row going 6 furlongs. 3 or 4 in a row going 6 furlongs after a series of heartbreaking, hanging efforts that made him no money at all in distance races with Shenandoah Pride. So when the horse's race popped around in the book going 6 furlongs, I stopped by the barn. I got my little entry pad in hand and my clipboard and my pencil, and I'm taking entries walking around the backstretch. And I said, hey, man, you want to go in this race? This is your race, right? Open 4,000. He looks at me and says, no. The jock says he's finishing so strongly, finishing so well, like gangbusters in these 6 furlong races, that he wants more distance. I just threw up my freaking hands and walked the hell away. So the horse's next 5 races were to rout. And he did the same freaking thing. Makes this big move, peaks at about the quarter pole, and then falls apart in the final stages. Just unbelievable move. Self-defeating placement. And you see it all the time from a lot of horsemen. How many minutes, guys? We've got 4 minutes to post. We got an eternity here, correct? State of Attack, number 5. State of Attack goes first off the claim there by Tina Ramsey, who's on tilt right now. Her horses are running right through the bridle. State of Attack, the 4 dirt races are just straight up ugly, and took the Panhandle plunge last time down to $4,000 into 6-5, and finishes way up the track. And it was a sloppy mountain main. So this looks like deja vu all over again, unless Tina Ramsey fixes something in a big hurry or knows something about how to get this horse to run. State of Attack ran like a bona fide dirt hater who wins big on synthetics, did State of Attack, and then on turf had a troubled trip and was at against the towering Bosley, who was a really good grass horse there, and then comes back and takes the play at 4-5 and may have made a premature move, but really came up empty and kind of showed me no heart in the race. So this is the kind of runner that was glorious in defeat, even on footing that he seemed to like. State of Attack, and as far as I can see, he's a dirt hater in his State of Attack. Roaring Rapids, number 7 is 9-2. Roaring Rapids came here to run on grass, I'm pretty sure, because all of his placings have been on grass, and he's only been on dirt 1 time. And I'm looking for it here, and I can't find it on his hard copy form, and I think things must have gotten a little ugly for Roaring Rapids. There was a lot of early speed in that race on July the 26th, and he should have at least closed for a piece of that, even against a track profile, which doesn't favor closers at 5 furlongs. But he is supported here because of the Silva tax. Silva's horses get bet, and because the public's thinking, okay, the 7.5 the time before last was pretty good, and he was a winner from off the pace going 7.5. So more real estate is probably going to help this horse. But I think turf also should have helped him last time, and that was a somewhat puzzling failure to perform at 3-1 odds. Biscotti, number 8. Keep an eye peeled for this barn because they're going to bust with something at a price. I guarantee you. Biscotti wins by this big margin, which never means anything at Mountaineer when you're facing maiden claimers, but came back to kind of affirm it with second place finish to Big Lucky, who ran right through his allowance conditions over the cold weather months this year in Austintown. I cast some bets on Big Lucky, who's a good horse. So at this point, Biscotti's for real. So when he comes off the bench this year, after the 5.5 tune-up, I'm thinking they're going to cut this big guy loose because this barn at one time was like 40%. I kid you not. Except Biscotti kind of throws it in reverse, just does not sustain there, and then comes back to run even worse. Now, if you throw the turf race out as some kind of an experiment, a failed experiment, and figure this horse just hates grass, then what do you still do at 3-1 with May the 24th? But again, keep a close eye on this outfit because they will win something, and that something's probably going to pay a price when you look at how futile it's been for this outfit this season. And in a race like this, you got your contenders that are pretty obvious, and then you got your horses you can easily eliminate, like a Frozen 4, like a Dancing on Air. You guys feel me on this? And maybe even a State of Attack, unless he improves miraculously off the claim. And I will say, if Biscotti's not a prime contender, he's also not a pitch going from turf to dirt, I don't think. Finding Candy's 4-5. Finding Candy figured to be the favorite here because Finding Candy romped last time in an off-turf race. It was an on-claimer. It didn't beat a lot, but he wins at 1-10, and he wins kind of like a 1-10. But if you want to nitpick, He was just galloping out there at an Arabian clip on the engine, and they were kind of getting into his lead in deep stretch there, finding Candy. I don't think he ran anything like he must have at Gulfstream Park to do it like that and hold on for second at 7/8 a couple of starts before that. Is that nitpicking? I don't mind knocking a horse, downgrading a horse for an apparently facile victory. Some of my best scores have come on the basis of that kind of thinking. But if Finding Candy gets the lead here, there's just precious little to beat. And I can tell you his two turf races were chock full of speed up top. And I thought he showed a lot of heart. And like everybody else, I thought he's Immortal Lock on June 29th. And am I being too tough on him? I think he should have run a little higher in the buyer scale and maybe should have won by a bigger margin. I don't know. He is the likeliest winner here. Make no mistake about that, Finding Candy. Although I would say likeliest winner who would look a little more like maybe a borderline lock, except for the opposing presence of Bahama Village, who draws in here. Bahama Village might bring some speed to the table because he's never routed before. And his one win was right to the top at all calls. Now, that was a big number he put up in a Charlestown maiden special. But he has just not run back to that. Although, to play devil's advocate and talk on this horse's behalf, he was out of conditions his first time against winners. He was in an ever 3 when, in fact, he's in ever 2. And those are some pretty fast horses. Irish Jubilee, a big heavy boy horse, was fast. And Bahama Village then tries synthetics, and that doesn't work. So he could be just a little bit camouflaged. He's maybe going to be wide where the track is good. And that's a tough call when you're going a mile because you don't want to be wide around the first turn and have the jock need to use up energy. But you're better off to be out in that part of the track when the real running starts. So it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other between a rock and a hard place in a case like that. But maybe a role player to hurt Finding Candy, and maybe even a contender. Number 12, Bahama Village. And how many minutes do we have to post? There's 0. And how close are they to the starting gate? They're coming towards the gate. And I can tell you guys, this is not a race that I intend to bet on because Finding Candy, the likeliest winner, but that's baked into his price. I don't know a thing about him that the public doesn't. Biscotti is no big value at 4 to 1. The 12 horse might be mildly interesting, but I can't quite embrace him first time at a round. Maybe wide end of that first turn. And Finding Candy's at least going to keep him entertained and probably top him through the early stages here. So I'm not going to bet it. Good luck to you guys. Arena, welcome to the dungeon. I call it the dungeon because it's what I dubbed the racing office. In fact, the whole department in Mountaineer when I worked for 36 years as an esteemed racing official. And you know what? Shame on you guys. Shame on you guys for taking away my 5 minutes of my entire life when any chick says I don't look like Frankenstein. The Boris Karloff version of Frankenstein. And FYI, Arena, I appreciate the sentiment. But as I said before here, in the dungeon, I do violate the two ironclad rules of doing live television, of doing television at all. I'm not good looking, and I'm not really likable either, if you got to know me off camera. Nonetheless, I had an extremely successful career breaking races down live with the Mountaineer feed, which went viral, if not outright legendary. But anyways, thanks for the sentiment. You ain't too bad yourself, by the way, if that's your real picture. Put that winner on your permanent pay no attention list. Guys, it was a well-timed move by a very bad horse from the better part of the track. Got good traction out there. At a somewhat contentious pace, I think benefited that winner also. I think I put it in the chat there. If anybody ever even considers or ponders betting that horse again at any future date, I'm going to suspend you from the dungeon. Maybe for 2 weeks or something like that. I didn't bet the race. I didn't like the race. Just got creepy vibes from it. Wasn't that big on Finding Candy. Finding Candy wasn't that short a price, though. As Biscotti actually ended up taking all kinds of play, right? Yeah, Biscotti was bet way down from that morning line, but you can't really hold the lines maker accountable for that because the odds were drawn up for turf, guys. So my man Lyric says she's a looker too. I bet your vision is 20/20, Lyrics. I bet you see just fine. Thank you. You know, I bet you're really good at recognizing a feminine pulcher too. Did I say that classy enough? So we've got to be on our best behavior here with a lady in the house, guys. I can't drop F-bombs all over the place, right? I got to be careful. I said before, Arena, the over-under on my F-bomb droppage in my daily life when I'm not doing live television is about 400 or 500, I would say. And if it's a golf day, you're going to go over 1,000. You're going over a K. Fifth race, 4.5 furlongs. This was never drawn up for the turf. Numbers twice in 2026, $4,000 claiming. And this race is chock full of speed. What else would you expect? Nobody in here can pass anybody except for Future Filet. And Future Filet, I have no idea what she's even doing in here because she's eligible for much softer condition than this 2 in 2026. In fact, could run now wonders in 12 months, the most restrictive veteran condition there is. And was 31-1 last time and made a late move as the race slowed up in the late stages. So it could be closing ground here because, man alive, some of these things you're going to be looking for oxygen. And if you put what I have perceived to be a negative rail, in fact, maybe an outright pro-wide bias into play here, then they could complicate things and make life even a little more miserable for some of the speeds, like Scream Machine on the inside and Divisibility. Scream Machine won a low condition last time. Was second in a low condition last time against the overrated Tiergarten, who did have the better footing there, but I don't care because I don't think Scream Machine's in a good part of the track tonight. And this is a much, much stiffer, swifter crew than Scream Machine was in with last time. Divisibility, number 3. It seems like she's always the speed of the speed. And I think that her last couple of wins were both at 4.5 furlongs. Divisibility. But she's been scratched, I think, from a short sprint since her last race, which might be ominous, which might not be a good thing. And also, man alive, when Vitami, you guys know Vitami? Vitami is like the mother of all quitters. Hadn't won in a couple of years and always gets the lead and always puts the brakes on. When you turn Vitami into a closer, a freaking closer, and Vitami was climbing all over Divisibility in deep stretch last time, then what chance do you have to come right back and win again, even if you are the speed of the speed, which normally means a lot when you got wall-to-wall speed in a race like this. So I'm moving right down the line here in a race that's kind of tough to gauge, guys. So we're going to look at it in that vein as here come the jockeys at 3 minutes to post. Number 4, Paul Murray. I've said before she's quirky. Doesn't always break, doesn't always flash her speed. But I think somewhere buried deep inside of her, she still possesses some of that early foot. I think she went against the grain last time, did she not? When she had the 2-post? Was that one of the negative rail nights? I should have checked it. I should have confirmed that. Paul Murray is one of the few horses in her that will keep trying when she gets topped, as she did in back-to-back efforts there at Charlestown. One of them, any other than Allowance, huh? Was in with Larimar last time, the legendary Larimar, and had no chance at 31-1. And if she's able to hit the break here and hold her own between horses and be buffered out from the bad part of the track, she could be interesting here, Paul Murray. But the thing is, this guy's horses just don't run. Kenton Hudson. So you got to put it in that context, people. I'm moving on down to Bashful Daisy. Bashful Daisy is the favorite at 2-1 is Daisy Girl. So they're going to throw out the 6 furlong race last time. I can throw it out for a couple of reasons. I'll come back after the post break. We'll talk some Bashful Daisy, I promise. So Bashful Daisy has had the lead in all but one of her last, 8, 9 races? So she always gets command. And some of those races at Charlestown going 4.5. That's the house that Speed built. I dubbed it that for a reason. That's what the Speed is at, baby. Bashful Daisy runs for owners, not the trainer, but these owners. For the kiss of death, man. I don't think they won a race since they hit town with some horses. Some of those runners were from Will Rogers Downs, though. This one's up from Charlestown, was sold over from Big Heavy Boy. Ramjeet's hot, but not with Pan Am horses. Now, Bashful Daisy is well off from the inside, which is going to be an advantage from what I've seen of the course so far. And has a lot of early foot, does Bashful Daisy. Tried to get 6 furlongs last time and was down close to the rail. The rail was a valley of death that night because the negative rail thing has been kind of a factor on a lot of race cards, and can't get 6 furlongs, Bashful Daisy, and was forced to science fiction opening quarter, and the fractions there were much faster than the final. So she did the heavy lifting there. And it would be the speeds coming out of that race that you would want to pay close attention to. On the outside, Signature Ring is 8-5. I think there's some possible pro-wide bias baked into that price point. Signature Ring has had the lead, in all but one race on her hard copy form? How fast is she? She wins 4 in a row, I think, in 2024. And then once won a piece in 2025 and 2026. She's been here before against lesser fields than this and didn't exactly show out impressively, but the time off seemed to do her a lot of good. Signature Ring, and is the widest speed here, and some pretty quick speed that never gets topped. How can you not respect her? Signature Ring. So the horses I'm looking at here, Paul Murray, a little bit Bashful Daisy, and Signature Ring would be my potential winners. And I'm not sure from looking at the board that I love the price on any of those horses to the point where I want to do a mic drop and get over to my account and bet any big money on this race, guys. So I'll be back afterwards. All the best. Guys, the more I look, the more I wonder, is the 8-horse going to get a piece of this? Should be one of the minor slots, huh? Is the only thing ambulatory and moving in the late stages and maybe passing anybody, even from way back. Guys, I made that race primary contenders for the win, the 7 and the 12, and I thought the 4 had an outside chance, but that was all baked into the odds. It doesn't do you any good to have an opinion if your opinion is no different than the money on the tote board. That's what makes the difference. It's called value. And I can sit and handicap my little heart out and come up with my best ideas, my best epiphanies, my best angles, and feel real good about myself. But if I don't see things that other people don't see and wager accordingly on, I'm not going to make any money. So one of the toughest things to do as a handicapper / horse player is to sit and do your prep, your due diligence, put a couple of hours into the form and come up with all these ideas and all these notions and all these pet theories. And we all have them and our whole arsenals we want to use to deploy all of our tools. And then you look at the odds board and the public sees the same thing that you do. The money sees the same thing that you do. So the race is dead to you at that point, absolutely dead. And it's not easy. It really isn't easy to abandon a race that you've got passionate opinions about, because it's not going to do diddly for you if everything you think you know is reflected on the board. And I think a lot of players overestimate the uniqueness of their opinions. They believe that their own ideas, their own notions, their own tools are things that the Sharpies aren't going to pick up on. And believe me, a lot of times they will. And that's part of my progress as a player and as a handicapper. And I'm still learning, the same as you guys are. I have been betting horses since I was 12 years old. I've been reading the racing form since I was 9 or 10. As a matter of fact, my dad would bring me the form from Old Wheeling Downs when I was in the 5th grade. And man, that is like in the late 1960s, and I'm not kidding you. And would ask me to handicap the races after the fact. And I was such a stickler for objectivity and going in blind that my dad would make a remark when he'd hand me the form. Well, Marky, you should be able to pick this one. It was pretty obvious. Or, well, you're never going to get that one because nobody liked this winner. And I'm saying, Dad, you're ruining this exercise by giving me these freaking hints. If I were at the races, I wouldn't have any hints if I were wagering. And that's what a stickler I was, even at 9 or 10 years old for this. But part of my progress as a player, and it's reflected in my private betting account, and I'm well in the black since I left Mountaineer, is the ability to admit when my ideas are not unique to me. When other people, just as sharp as I am, are going to see the same things that I did in a horse race. And again, at that point, the race is dead to me. And I thought that race was a good case in point. I do think the wide bias thing came into play again in that race. Otherwise, Bashful Daisy, who I think notched the first win for those owners. You can't just look at the trainers. You got to look at the owners too, because some trainers do a lot better for certain owners than for others. And some of the owners, their horses have different form profiles than some of the other folks that are paying the bills. And Bashful Daisy, to win from that far back, which is not really her MO because she's a one-dimensional speed, I think had to have the grain in her favor out there. And I've been beating around the bush to come back up and pontificating a little bit about value and ideas and notions in your toolbox as handicappers out there. Because I'm dreading this freaking race. We only have 2, man. Just 2. Going to the post. A little bit lonely in the paddock, huh? It looks forlorn and desolate. I've told you guys before, and I like telling this story, and sometimes I can get a little bit repetitive, that the indoor paddock at Mountaineer, and not down there necessarily, but up above, around the indoor paddock, I think is an historic landmark at Mountaineer. A state landmark anyways, and thus has to be preserved. I think they would need special dispensation and licensing to ever change it or tear it down. I'm pretty sure about that. And it is the least changed part of the facility. In fact, when I used to blog on the Mountaineer website before Century took over and didn't want me to exercise my writing skills anymore, and I'm a pretty good writer. I'm not as good at writing as I am at shooting from the hip and doing live television. Off the top of my head, I'm better spontaneous than I am writing, but I'm a pretty skilled writer. And I used to write a pretty entertaining blog. It was sometimes hardcore horse racing stuff. and sometimes would stir the pot a little bit. And at other times was more fanciful. My most popular blog, and I've had offers to make a graphic novel out of this, was about a vampire racehorse that I named Wallachian Prince. And if you guys are interested, I might type it in on my website and let you guys know where my website is, because that was the real Count Dracula. And of course, the literary character is based on him. That was his official title, the Prince of Wallachia, Count Dracula. So I wrote a kind of inspired, and it was certainly well received, short story about a vampire racehorse that won the Mountaineer Mile with Deshaun Parker on board. And I think I got all of it in the batter's box when I wrote that story, to be really honest about it. And you know what? Maybe I'll do. Maybe I will put it up on my own website now. And you can find my website at the Dungeon 2025. And I keep track bias notes in kind of a diary form. But anyways, I digress. And what I was getting around to is I blogged about the indoor paddock and how it takes me back in time at Mountaineer. And it's the thing I maybe miss most about the antiquated facility there. And they've been operational since 1951, May of 1951. And sometimes from my downstairs dungeon desk, and I dubbed the racing office the dungeon for a lot of different reasons. We were a subterranean species that weren't supposed to see the light of day. The 7-horse, by the way, will crush the 1-horse in here. Just no question about it. But you guys knew that to begin with. So anyways, my blog was really well received. And I used to take 1,000 hits a day on it, really seriously, because I could publicize it on the Mountaineer feed, and it went worldwide out there to the great Mountaineer Nation. And one of my blogs was about spending time in the indoor paddock. When I come up from the downstairs dungeon, my downstairs dungeon desk in the racing office, I usually work best on dark fall afternoons and just kind of sit there and go back in time and picture my dad standing at the rail watching the horses, sometimes my mom. And I swear you can almost go back in time if there's nobody around to jerk you back to the present and the indoor paddock at Mountaineer. We'll talk about these two horses in a minute here. We got plenty of time. I hate races like this, guys. I've seen match races before, usually off turf races, but it's a little bit unusual to see a race written for dirt to begin with, to scratch down to just a couple of horses. That's why when you're configuring your card, and I was in charge of that for a long time, working as the assistant / outright racing secretary at Mountaineer, you don't want to draw a race with less than 6. And they had 6 in there. How many did they have to begin with? Right from the job there, 1, 2, 3. I think they had like 6 or 7 right before the scratches in this race. You'll double check it there. Yeah, in fact, they had 7. It's a bad look when in a West Virginia bred race you get all these scratches, because there's a general perception that the folks that run West Virginia breds conspire a little bit to get the numbers and to twist the racing secretary's arm to use their races. And it's a really bad look when they scratch down like this. Although I really wouldn't blame Team Mountaineer in this case, because One of the horses that remains is Charlestown based, and we see 2 Charlestown scratches in here. So if anything, I think the onus about maybe bending over backwards or conspiring to fill a West Virginia bred race may not fall in northern West Virginia in this instance. But this is the kind of stuff I used to combat as a racing official. I used to absolutely hate, because a race like this does nobody any good. And this doesn't mean that these were bad faith entries, any of them. But that's your first suspicion when a race scratches down to 2 like this. You wonder who was really going to run to begin with, and who's just in there to kind of push the ball along when it comes to state restricted money being paid out. A Zealous Storm has a better part of the track, is faster, is younger than Little Ruru. Little Ruru comes out of a race that found him a good second to a West Virginia bred phenom, Abundant Energy. But the first quarter was soft, softer than Zealous Storm can manage out there in the better part of the track. Little Ruru was 6 furlong capable. Little Ruru was 1 going 6.5 and 7 a few times at Charlestown, by the way. So the distance is not the issue. I think the post is an issue. Being outgunned early would be another issue. And at this stage of the respective careers, I would assume Zealous Storm has simply more left in the tank, more upside, and a brighter future than does Little Ruru. No choice but to gun Little Ruru for all that one's worth from the inside, from the 1 post here. And the horse has flashed 4.5 furlong, zip at Charlestown. Now, if that's the case, and you want to look at that instead of compare their first quarters on some of their races, then Zealous Storm can run without the lead and prove that. First time back off the bench this year showed a new dimension we've never seen from Zealous Storm before, to run bravely after being topped, and that was outside the West Virginia program there. For Zealous Storm is the winner of that, Sterling Castle. I think it was an Anthony Adamo, and he's a 40% trainer. Wherever he ships to was an Adamo horse who came back to win again in Canada and the next outing. So that proved Zealous Storm is not a shrinking violet if Zealous Storm gets topped. And you know what? Even Steven on the odds board, I got to bet on the bottom horse here a little bit, guys. Got to do it. Back afterwards. Guys, there is such a thing as a 1-2 overlay, and that was definitely it. That horse was never going to lose to Little Ruru. It just didn't happen. Every component of performance, Zealous Storm had better and more of than Little Ruru, including the better part of the track. I would urge some caution moving forward, though, with the good Zealous Storm, who was now 6'4", 15, and has been part of the Exacta in all but one lifetime outing. Because did you notice that Zealous Storm stayed left lead and was traveling wide in front and was trying to come back to a vanquished Little Ruru? At that point, Little Ruru was got to be gunned for the lead down the backstretch, as predicted, obviously. So Little Ruru was all in, can't get the lead. Zealous Storm's on cruise control, out and by far the better footing. At that point, Zealous Storm's supposed to name the margin, except Zealous Storm starts coming back to a badly spent Little Ruru, who's still down in the worst part of the track. And the reason's pretty obvious. If you're a visual handicapper, then I would advise you to watch the replay. And if not, then watch it and learn. As Zealous Storm stayed left lead and was moving choppy and short striding in front. And for the uninitiated out there, the easy way to tell which lead a horse is in is watch the hind strike. Don't watch the front legs. When the right hind strikes first, that means the horse is on the left lead, which can indicate some infirmities, because usually horses, and it's much more desirable, with the exception of the great Aladar, who was just left-handed or something, in his epic match races, virtual match races with the Immortal Affirmed, never came off the left lead Aladar. But with cheaper horses of mountaineer ilk, it's usually indicative of some physical issues. And I did not like the way Zealous Storm was traveling at all in the late stages there. So next time against a full field, I'm going to predict Zealous Storm is going to be a bet against. And it's all about moving forward, because this one's done, baby. This one's over. History. Rex, I feel for you when certain places bring back memories of your mom. Bittersweet memories, I would guess. How long's your mom been gone, if I can be so bold as to ask you? Because at some point, there'll be just good memories instead of sad memories. I do miss my mom. I miss her most days. And she's been gone since my man, who's 30 years old now, was 4 years old. So my mom's been gone for quite some time. My mom was kind of my best friend, and certainly my closest confidant and my advisor. She had a lot of wisdom, did my mom. And she was also the only person that could ever intimidate me. And she went through hell with me when I was a teenager and I dropped out of the 10th grade and was known as a racetrack bum and squandered one hell of a promising athletic career. Had offers to pitch pro baseball and was a basketball phenom. And I didn't care. I didn't give a shit about anything but getting to the races. And I sacrificed my education. I gave up some pretty good girlfriends. I gave everything to this game. And my mom watched it and she cried the day I dropped out of school, and I put her through living hell. She would see me become a successful racing official and a well-respected racing official. But she passed away a week before I got my shot to go on television, which came out of the blue, and never saw what would become of her son's career, her son, the dropout. So I feel for you, Rex, my man. I do. And trust me, Zealous Storm's loss of athletic action through the home stretch there is your only takeaway from that race. Okay, it is 5 minutes to post on kind of a novelty. We've got a 1.5 mile race, and these are really rare. We used to write them at Mountaineer, Joe and I, in the racing office, usually as part of a starter series, which would commence at 7/8 on the turf and then go to 7.5 and then a mile. And when they started getting washed off and stuff like that, they'd go over to dirt. But we moved them on out to like a mile and 7/8 and even 2 miles. They only fill up to a point, as the marathon horses tend to weed each other out. And they're kind of a dying breed. You don't see many horses left that want to run around there all day. You just don't. And a mile and a half is different than any other distance. Just because a horse can close at a mile or look strong at a mile and a 16th or even a mile and an eighth, and I dare say even a mile and a quarter, you can see this. You could see it when the Belmont Stakes, the Test of Champions, was still a mile and a half before it went to Saratoga. It was a different deal than even the Kentucky Derby, which is a grueling test of 10 furlong stamina. You don't know if a horse can get a mile and a half until they try. Don't call him a cowboy until you've seen him ride. And that is certainly true. A mile and a half races. You can watch their action. You can delve into the pedigree and a lot of different things, but you don't know if they're going to go a mile and a half until they attempt to. So this race obviously will come past the wire twice. And I've seen jocks blow the wire in these mile and a half races, by the way, and ride like hell the first time through the home stretch because they forgot they got another lap to go. The good jockey Jason Lumpkins once blamed me because he blew the wire and opened up a 20-length lead first time down the home stretch in a mile and a half race because I came up in my recap and I called him out on it. It's my job. And he said, if I hadn't mentioned it on national television, nobody would have noticed that he was 30 lengths in front and sticking and driving. First time past the wire in a mile and a half race. Okay, Jock. Okay. So the old-time riders, evidently without much mental acuity, would put stones in their mouth and spit one out every time they passed the wire, just so they know which time counted. That's old school stuff. I'm not sure there are any stones in any of these miles in the paddock right now, guys. Zaddy is 6 furlong closer. Get him out of there. Number 2, Self-Taught. Self-Taught time before last was in the slop. Doesn't like the slop. And I like his chances to come back and run down. He's a shooter who's stout is Lone Speed, and he was Lone Speed on July the 20th, or at least on paper. Self-Taught comes up huge and gets a class raise here. So you know he's traveling well right now, and Silva likes him back at the barn, Self-Taught. Self-Taught, I can't find him running any farther than a mile and an eighth, though. And I can tell you this horse does not like wet footing, so I would also consider that when I'm thinking about Self-Taught. And again, the distance is a big, big issue for any of these horses we haven't seen run a mile and a half. This horse was claimed from Robert Cole, my man Robert Cole, sharp guy, who was kind of the architect of the Kevin Patterson Joe DiMaggio streak when he saddled 16 straight winners, Kevin Patterson, which I predicted might happen in a blog of mine, which I titled The Undefeated. Was good friends with Kevin Patterson, by the way. Boldness, number 3. Boldness is on quite a roll. 3 in a row. Comes out of one of those funky ratings handicap races that went in fast final time. He's putting the buyers together, Boldness. He's got speed, but he can also be rated. He rates kindly, does Boldness. But he's by Big Drama. And I just can't envision. And if you know Big Drama like I know Big Drama, you would not envision a Big Drama getting a full mile and a half. Big Drama is the horse that was in the Mind That Bird, the infamous Mind That Bird West Virginia Derby. It was a feather in my cap. I recruited Mind That Bird, a Kentucky Derby winner for the West Virginia Derby. And I could write a book about the shit that those people put me through and about some of the underhanded stuff other tracks tried to submarine me out of a Kentucky Derby winner, Mind That Bird. But whatever the case, Mind That Bird didn't fire at all in our West Virginia Derby. And in fact, Big Drama was a 7 furlong horse who opened like this humongous 12, 14-length lead between calls there because the jockey was afraid of a Mind That Bird kick, which would never materialize. So whereas it is commonly thought that the jock on Mind That Bird blew the Derby by dropping too far back, he didn't. He was exactly where he should have been, way, way back in another county. His Big Drama just ran right off the screen. It was the jock on Big Drama that blew that West Virginia Derby by trying to run away and hide from a late charge that never materialized. And humongous leads just never hold on. And high-quality mountaineer route races, it just never happens. Magic Mover, number 5, is classier than the other pace horses in here. And put up a good number last time and won some kind of a starter optional. And you can see where he wins another starter. So he likes these starter conditions back on April the 12th. This is a starter 12.5, so he's a good fit here as Magic Mover. But I can't find where he's ever run farther than like a mile and a 16th. Although we did get 3 turns at Charlestown, going a mile and a 16th. You got to hang 3 lefts to do that, which is the same case with this mile and a half. So that may mean he's better equipped to get this distance than some of the others. and could factor into the price right now at 2-1 on Magic Mover. Yeah, the more I think, guys, the more I believe it's relevant that Magic Mover, although he has never won longer than I know of than a mile and a 16th, that is a 3-turn race at Charlestown. So in a weird way, the same configuration that Magic Mover goes in here. Now, he's one of those horses with a long wraparound campaign, 24 starts. And he looked a little knocked out time before last, but he was back on his game most recently. And he is nothing if not rateable because he was tractable enough to slow that pace down to 26 and 51. So could be playing his song in here too. It depends on if anybody attacks early here. Some of these horses get rank and will not rate behind a leader. Boldness has looked rateable at a mile and at 6 panels. Now, whether or not he is tractable enough to not go up and want a challenge at a mile and a half is another issue. Roses Pepino used to be a classy stone cold closer. Did Roses Pepino. Sometimes these days he runs better than others. He's not what he was. That is for certain. Now, he does exit a race that found him second to a lone speed, very strong front-running winner there. So that race might be a little bit better than it looked from Roses Pepino. I'm a little intrigued to see him try a marathon for the first time because he's not what he was, but used to have a ferocious kick in high-class competition, too. I can recall him winning a 3 other than allowance optional during his salad days in Austintown. Unpredictable Bay. No idea what he's doing in here. No business going to the post in this race. Curlin's in charge last time, beat Mirror, 3 lifers with a good setup. I have no idea how DRF deemed that race speed friendly. It wasn't. It was closer friendly, and he was in the catbird seat, outclassed on paper. And the only horse that here has run this distance is He's Gots to Go. Number 9, he wins at a mile and a half on turf. He's a 3-time winner on grass. He's also a 3-time winner on dirt, so he likes the dirt. And his numbers have come around nicely in his last couple of races as He Gots to Go. So this horse is a major player in this 7th race, and I have no idea why he's 11-1 up there. Just no clue why he's 11-1 up there. Ostensibly changed his hand since his most recent race over to a low percentage barn. If he's actually been sold, I don't want him, but sometimes they just ship him in and run him in somebody else's name. So my prospective winners here would be Magic Mover and He Gots to Go, the 9. That would be how I looked at this race. Interestingly enough, I don't think this race is part of a marathon series that is lengthened out leg after leg. I don't think it was an extra either because who in here would have requested a mile and a half? Because only one proven stayer in here. Number 9, He Gots to Go. That's an out-of-town barn that's unlikely to have requested this race to be put on the overnight as an extra. So I can only conclude this race is not part of a marathon series, but was part of the condition book, which is a little bizarre, but might make for some entertaining action here. Again, guys, my 2 possible winners are number 5, Magic Mover, and number 9, He Gots to Go, who's still up there at 11-1. So what a roll for boldness, huh? Is that 4 consecutive now at distances ranging from 6 panels all the way out to a mile and a half there? I'm still unconvinced he's a true mile and a half horse. They were slogging in the late stages there. I mentioned beforehand, I didn't pick him or anything. I'm not going to red board. But I did mention he's rateable, he's tractable. So he had that going for him. More rateable than his daddy, who opened like a 15-length lead in the West Virginia Derby, which turned out to be a wasteful lead. The 9 horse was not value. I guess he was dead on the board. Is the way you would look at that after the fact. It was pretty strange that he was that high in the odds. I think somebody knew something about him that wasn't good. And now I would tend to believe he wasn't just shipped into a low percentage trainer's barn to run in her name under the old trainer's conditioning, but probably sold since the last race. And that's how come he goes out there and paddles his legs like that. Not a race I was confident about, not a race I bet on, not a race I ever intended to bet on. So if you guys did, and you came up with that winner, then more power to you. More power to you guys. So we got one race to go, 5.5 furlongs. This is starter $4,000. And I think the one of the two are out, right? Macy's World draws closest to the dreaded rail, which is not going to help Macy's World's chances, I don't think. Macy's World is kind of erratic and tough to predict. I never used to respect her. Then all of a sudden she got good. I still swear she's doing it with mirrors. Macy's World. But if she decides to run and she gets off the rail, then she could be formidable here. Bonita Vida is a really hard horse to read for me. I know that she wins 4 in a row and runs right through her conditions. It's been a while since I saw that, a horse do that, run through the conditions in consecutive starts to make her local record 4 for 4. But how come they never raised her in class after a 10-length win, after a 9-length win, after a 7-length win? So finally, after a 4th consecutive kick into the curb score, they give Bonita Vida a non-claiming opportunity. Now, I will say she was crazy over bet against Larimar in that ratings handicap and acquitted herself okay. Now, she did squander a really perfect trip as Larimar was occupied in front in Mortal Kombat, and Bonita Vida maybe regressed a little bit, although she was outclassed. It's not her fault that she was overbet against the likes of Larimar, who's a bona fide open $25,000 horse here, or Ed Mahoning. So she gets some relief here class-wise and a starter, straight-up starter instead of that ratings handicap, does Bonita Vida. So I think we'll get a better line on her, what she can and can't do. I am not crazy about the fact that she's only got 1 horse between her and the dreaded rail, although they will all be loaded well out from the inside here, given the scratches of the 1 and the 2. Delray Dolly with 16 career wins for about $250,000. Delray Dolly. I ran off the monitor here once when she's on top around the turn, but she can come without the lead also, beat Rockstar Parking there. And O'Shaughnessy would get pretty good in Austintown, or had been good in Austintown. Most recently, she was 2nd to Crimson Knight. I'm not sure if that was a Banner Delray Dolly performance, but not bad form, and she's a chance here. And Crimson Knight's on the outside. Crimson Knight's used to be able to run without the lead a little bit, but I think she's morphed over into kind of a speed horse and was in an unusually fortunate spot on June the 16th when she pulls into a 4.5 furlong race that was completely lacking in 4.5 furlong speed. And when she gets the lead at 4.5, then she's not going to look back. So I don't think that win proves a lot or counts for a lot from Crimson Knights, who comes back in her next and is just nowhere to be found. Is Take Wings, who was also in here, the 8 horse, and Take Wings is the favorite there. Take Wings was 2nd to Mama Marge, and Mama Marge is the goods. A bona fide starter allowance horse from Charlestown, where the races are tougher than they are here. So that's a big performance from Take Wings, especially when you consider that Take Wings wants the lead and didn't get it there. Now, I will qualify all my comments about Take Wings by saying she is a ton better on turf than on dirt. Take Wings. But her big Achilles heel on dirt is she doesn't have any stamina. She can't get 2 turns. She can sprint on dirt, and she has proven it before and pulls into a field here coming out of a race that involved a very fast opening stanza and may pull a field here that she can top right from the get-go here. Take Wings. The only issue with her, I think, is like a lot of turf horses, I'm not sure she likes a wet track because her numbers are lower on wet footing. Take Wings. But it's not like she's going to have it getting kicked back in her face, because if she's going to fire here, she'll be right out there from the get-go, take wings. And then you have the pro-wide bias, which is certainly negative real and probably even a touch of pro-wide thrown in there, also rearing its ugly, ominous head, which could come into play here. It could compromise Macy's World. It could compromise Bonita Vita, who may inherit the rail right out of the gate from Macy's World. It's possible. Fancy Princess is 19-1 up there. I'm a little puzzled why she's in here. This is a pretty sharp outfit, Don Blankenship, Little Donnie. If he's calling the shots instead of the owner, if the owner's calling the shots, then I like this placement a lot less, because Fancy Princess wins a low condition race. And not exactly an impeccable record in cheap condition races at that. Has never earned her entree into starter allowance competition, and certainly fumbled the ball at an unclaimer last time, a ratings handicap. So that is kind of a quick once through my take on this 8th race. Enjoyed it tonight, guys, a lot. Let's check out the chat, and thanks some of you guys for popping up and showing some support here. So thank you for popping in, guys. Had some spirited chat this evening, didn't we? And I do appreciate all the input and all the feedback. We learn from each other as horse players. You know, I've probably read 500, maybe 750 books on handicapping. And I have written a lot of handicapping articles for major magazines. But the most important things I've learned did not come from books. It came from other handicappers. As even if I didn't respect their overall game or thought they did some stupid things or had some dumb theories, sometimes they had one little weapon in their arsenal that I would kind of filch and steal for myself and make part of my own arsenal. Just put it away in my own toolbox. I've learned a lot from other handicappers over the years, because I've talked to thousands of them over the years, man. And I think that's a good opportunity here in the dungeon. We can learn from each other. And I don't sit here as any great teacher or professor. Some would consider me qualified to pontificate on horse races. I worked 36 years as a racing official, and I basically ran a racing office, and made a real rep for myself. As an official, worked all the jobs: secretary, assistant secretary, clerk of scales, which is tough. It's kind of like a catcher in baseball. Claims clerk, operated the infield teletimer, was official clocker, was identifier. I learned a lot about the game from behind the scenes, but way before that, I was a degenerate gambler and handicapper who was bet on tens of thousands, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of races I've wagered on and watched. And as an official, I also did the morning line as official odds maker on some 40,000 races, and assigned weights for some 200 handicap races, and was actually named one of America's top 10 television analysts. So some would consider me qualified to shed some light on these races. But again, the dungeon is designed for us to learn from each other. But I'll tell you one thing I can reiterate, you guys can learn from me right now, is don't look at them on their morning line. It'll make you go freaking blind. Like the stuff you did when you were a kid, and your mom would try to frighten you into not doing in your bedroom at night or in the bathtub, and she'd tell you to make you go blind. It wouldn't, believe me. But the modern morning line will effing make you go blind. It's so lousy and amateurish. Nobody pays any attention to it or looks at it to try and gauge value in comparison to the preset price points there. It's just ridiculously amateurish. I don't know who does it. I don't want to know, because when I criticize, it's never personal. It's just absolutely never personal. So I'm getting texts now, And I would invite you guys. You guys are cordially invited to text me at 304-224-4339. Don't mind it a bit, because I've become really good friends with some of you guys and hope to become friends with most of you guys. And that's the point at which my Mountaineer show really went viral and really took off. It was always disproportionately popular to attract Mountaineer size, which did not earn me any friends amongst fellow employees, if you get my drift there. The whole idea that began to be floated, that I was bigger than the track that employed me, did not endear me to my coworkers, and probably even less to management. But the show really took off and went to a higher level when I put my phone number out on the air and invited viewers to text me. And I developed a personal relationship with a lot of viewers and was able to make their acquaintances to go back and forth. And I would read their text on the air, and the whole thing just kind of caught fire and took off at that point. So when I'm on the air, I will get with you in the comments. And when I'm not, feel free to text me. I'm a night owl. I'll get back to you. If I don't, it's because I'm sleeping or I'm busy with Little Bear or watching a horror movie or something like that. And you can text me at 304-224-4339. You know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm going to undertake a little bit of a project which will not distract from my hosting chores here in the dungeon. I will still keep my nose to the grindstone and do what I'm supposed to do, because I know what a host of a show like this is supposed to do. I understand the preparation and the proper delivery, so the most people can glean the most knowledge and entertainment both from it. I did it for 25 years, a live television, so I ain't no rookie. But I'm going to branch out a little bit sideways as kind of a personal vanity project, which has nothing to do with the horse racing part of my YouTube channel. And I'm going to do an audiobook reading of Dracula, which is in the public domain. I don't have to pay anybody anything. And I read up on the rules, and all I have to do is read it verbatim. I can't change one word. I'm in violation of Bram Stoker's Descendants. And he wrote Dracula. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've been boning up a little bit for it, and it'll probably sound like crap, but I've listened to several Dracula audiobooks, and I want to do one myself. So let me know if you guys think that's insane. Absolutely insane for me to do. Again, it has nothing to do with horse racing, and it will not distract from my duties and my self-assigned obligation here on my horse racing YouTube channel. So I'm not at all certain that I'll make a bet here. Had a good night wagering. I'm going to stick around and watch the last, but for now, I'm going to slip over there. These comments scrolled right out of sight on me here, guys. Hey, thanks for getting with me, guys. And again, you're not my viewers, you're not my fans, you're my friends. Mark Patterson out.